We are so pledged.
Madam Mayor, it is 6:02 and we are live.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the City of Lake Worth Beach Utility City Commission meeting on Tuesday, September 24th, 2024. May we have the roll call, please?
Mayor Betty Rush,
Here.
Vice Mayor Sarah Maliga,
Present.
Commissioner Christopher McVoy,
Here.
Commissioner Mimi May,
I'm here.
Commissioner Ronaldo Diaz.
Here.
Thank you. We will have the Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Diaz.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First up, we have the electric utility update by our own Mr. Ed Liberty, our Director.
Madam Mayor, we need to do the
What?
agenda adoption.
Oh, I didn't do that.
And
Okay.
if I may just
Yeah.
interrupt you for a moment.
Sure.
We do have on the consent agenda the agreement with Lewis, Longman, and Walker for legal services related to the water supply negotiations with the town of Palm Beach. We neglected to include in the backup agenda for that a waiver of conflict of interest. Lewis Longman has represented the town of Palm Beach and represents the town of Palm Beach on unrelated issues to this utility matter. So as you know, by Florida bar rules, we have to go ahead and execute a conflict waiver. So as part of approval of their legal services agreement, I would ask that the commission include the conflict waiver.
Okay, and I see that the representatives from Lewis, Longman, and Walker are here tonight. Did they want to speak? I mean, it's on the consent agenda to be passed or denied, but I didn't know if you wanted to. No, just here for, okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Fine.
Thank you.
And Madam Mayor, too, there's one more thing. There's another piece of backup that has to get added to consent agenda for item A for the Federal Highway Administration grant.
The grant.
Yes, this is the locations. I just want to make sure that that gets added to the backup.
Okay, Madam Clerk, you got that?
We will get a copy of it, Madam
Okay.
Mayor.
Okay, we really have no, we have the addition just of material, but not additions to the agenda itself. So on that limited basis, do I have a motion to approve the limited agenda change?
Motion to approve as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Now it's time for Mr. Liberty and his electric utility.
Good evening, everybody. For the record, Ed Liberty, Electric Utility Director. I have a few points I'll make, and then we're going to ask Brian King to give you a brief update on the PCA. Number one, I want to mention that we're having a relatively good year for reliability. Knock on wood. Normally, we will wait till we do a larger briefing by Jason Bailey, our Assistant Director for System Operations, but we're looking at numbers through the end of August. We're in the range of 77 to 84% improvement over last year with respect to frequency of outages and duration of outages. So that's going to change a little bit with the experiences we just had in September, which I want to mention, but we're on the right path. Not every month is going to be a great month. Not every month is going to be a bad month, but if you look at over time, we're trending in the right direction. The investments that you all have approved us to make in the system are paying off, and we're getting better and better all the time. In terms of what took place in September, I know there are people at home may be watching, and I'll point out three of the larger outages that we had and what caused those. The first one was on September 1, so no sooner did we finish a really good month in August. On September 1, on a Sunday, we discovered that we had balloons that had come into contact with live overhead conductors in our main yard. That took out roughly 9,784, plus or minus, customers within a millisecond.
Does it matter, Mylar? They're Mylar.
Mylar.
Yeah, they're Mylar, and it floated into the station and it tripped suddenly. Exactly.
We're not gonna let it go.
Exactly. We're going to stab it and dispose of it properly.
Commissioner May knew you were going to bring this up.
Yes. So that's, and there's no,
Show and tell.
I go home and I see those balloons at home sometimes. They're in my son's home too. I'm like, oh, please don't let those outside. But we did lose over 9,000 customers for about 76 minutes due to balloons. That's not good, obviously. So if you're watching at home, love to have you love the balloons, but please do not release them outside. So besides losing power, I think a much bigger issue is what it does to wildlife, right? We're next to the ocean, we're next to the lagoon, and animals will ingest these, and it's a horrible, horrible, painful finish for that animal for ingesting balloons. So please don't do that. If you're not worried about electric, at least worry about that. Okay, September 9th, we had a failed insulator, a 1960s vintage insulator on a pole, failed in the Murray Hills development. That took down 618 customers for 121 minutes. So I know Murray Hills reached out to me right away, got them an answer. We did a detailed investigation, got that back to them. So one of the poles was what we looked difficult one to get to, another one was accessible, but they were out for about 121 minutes. And then we had an iguana. On the 20th, we had an iguana got onto the 15th Avenue South transformers to the southeast portion of the city. Roughly 1,800 or 1,900 customers were out for partial 14 minutes and a larger group for about 18 minutes. But the iguana is not talking
Or doing anything.
anymore. Yes. So that takes care of that. FMPA solar amendments that you all approved last month were also approved by the FMPA Board and Executive Committee. So that's moving along. We are starting to see some test power from the Rice Creek site, and we hope to have power flowing by November 1. So they had a problem with inverters that had experienced failures at other sites. So out of caution, they were taking a look to make sure that they were properly assembled internally. It involved an inverter manufacturer taking a look at them. So we hope to have that fully flowing by November 1. So that's moving along. We do have a meeting, I do together with Yannick, a pretty intensive session that'll take place with Fitch, which is one of the major rating agencies in the country, not related to necessarily to city business, but it is related to the FMPA St. Lucie bonds, of which we are the single largest participant in that project. And they have a continuing interest in our financial performance and operational performance. So that session will take place with us on Thursday morning for about an hour. So Davenport is assisting us, Stantec is assisting us. We did a little bit of a dry run with me today. And if Fitch is listening, we'll look forward to speaking with you again on Thursday morning.
And that's unrelated to the coal plant contract issues that we discussed a while back?
Completely unrelated.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah, this is strictly related to the bonds that were sold by FMPA for its share of the FMPA St. Lucie project, which is the nuclear project. So they monitor those bonds. They've had some concerns with us in the past. We think that those are behind us, and we'll try to reaffirm that with them on Thursday morning. We are watching this tropical system that's forecasted to turn into Hurricane Helene. I have been in touch with FMEA. They're putting out an early call to see who would be available to go and help. Assuming that we just get a glancing blow of some rain and some wind, if we're that lucky, we will send either 1 or 2 crews, offer to send if they accept it. We'll see which utilities are affected, but it is headed to that area, somewhere between, I would say, just north of the Tampa-St. Pete area, all the way up towards the Panhandle. It's a pretty broad cone there. A lot of municipal fellow utilities there. So if they need help, we'll help. Okay, I'm going to ask Brian to come up and give you a briefing on where we are with PCA, and then we'll go on with the rest of the agenda.
That is a sporty jacket.
Might be worth a jacket.
Yeah.
You know, got a little pizzazz, got a little personality.
It does, it does.
Brian's funny.
Brian's Friday.
Oh, we would have matched right up. See? For the record, Brian King, Assistant Director of Generation T&D Operations, and we are here to talk about the PCA and where we are and where we're going. So obviously you all have that pamphlet I just handed you, which breaks down the PCA. We do this every time we're here for you guys and go over where we are in the numbers and where we are strategically. So you do see that August, we did again dip into our PCA reserves for another 433,000. But I do want to point out, when you see that, you say, okay, well, we continue to see these losses month over month over month. Well, if you look at when we did reduce the PCA, that was March 1st. You see we started dipping into our reserves. Then you see you get to May there, and it's it's a pretty big number there, the 700,000 we dipped into that, right? That's when the heating seasons, it's getting hot out, the ACs are running more. And so that what you see is that we incur a lot of those expenses and maybe you don't see those revenues come in at that very month. But then slowly after that, it starts taking a turn. Right now, it's going the other way. We're starting to see all those revenues come in. You'll see month by month, it gets less and less. So we continue to monitor this, we continue to look at it. There are some factors here that are driving some of our cost stuff. There are some additional capacity purchases that we are making for units that are in outage. For example, our St. Lucie unit is in outage right now, so we're only getting 50% of our capacity credit from that unit. So we have to go ahead and purchase that other capacity. Our unit is offline. Our combined cycle gas turbine is unavailable as we continue to work on cable to get that repaired and back into service. So again, we're picking up additional capacity to cover that unit until that commissioning testing is done on that cable and that unit is brought back to service. So those are the reasons that we continue to see these negative numbers, and we'll continue to look at the PCA and see if there's any adjustments at some point we want to make, but we'll watch that and come back and give you an idea where we think we are.
Somewhere there's a light. Couple of questions for you. What?
Mr. Diaz, you were on for a long time. Yeah, Mr. Diaz is actually.
Okay.
I just had a quick curiosity question more for maybe Ed, or you might notice too, Brian. And it's regarding our lovely balloon situation. I think there's always an educational opportunity, and I'm just curious, like, do you happen to have, and it's not a pop quiz right now, but like the cost of what that balloon cost us? Because we have good numbers on what like our iguanas do when they dig into canal banks and stuff like that, but what does one balloon in the right spot cost the city in terms of man hours and parts and all
We can
that?
come up with the cost. Dollar cost is one thing, but
Yeah.
what the PR cost is, when customers are out of service
Yeah,
in August or September, that's the difficult part. We could put a number tied to the balloon and getting customers restored, but the PR that we feel is, when your power is out at 2 in the afternoon or 3 in the afternoon
Yeah.
on a hot day because of a balloon, that could be aggravating, I'm sure.
On a holiday weekend.
Plus,
And
they
a
were
Sunday
the
of Labor Day weekend.
the
Day
downtown
weekend.
businesses too.
Registry, every balloon has
a little tag.
a balloon, you have to put your name on it.
Yeah.
Find the balloon,
We could track it back to,
Yeah.
I just saw, I just usually think that because people, that law is out there and people are like, oh, what's the harm? You always see pictures of people doing it at the beach or whatever. And what's the big deal? It's just a few balloons. And if they don't respond to environmental impact, the dollars and cents and you going out without electricity, I think that's like a public, an outreach opportunity.
And, the health and safety risk too. It's a very hot day. It puts people at physical risk, not to mention the crews that have to come in and work in those conditions and trying to bring the system back. So, and that particular day, though, we were fortunate. The crews responded, what we call substation, and others responded, including the engineering department, within an hour. They were on site and they were beginning to help restore the system. And there was some troubleshooting that had to happen with respect to the relays, because you may remember we just segmented those buses into six different sections, and you had to synchronize the bus. So there was some nuances to the controls there, to the new control house, that the engineers had to do some troubleshooting on very quickly to come up with some workarounds and get the system going again. So, but I would say easy to save $2,000 or $3,000 in labor costs on that day alone, not counting the lost revenue of having 9,000 customers out for quite a while.
I think I know the answer to this question, but when an outage comes out, you guys know that, right? We don't, I'm saying this for our citizens a little bit, they don't have to call, we know, is that correct?
That, an outage
We
this
have
type,
people
that's for
looking
sure.
at screens going, uh-oh.
Yeah, that was a loud noise when that one happened. There's 26 kV breakers all slammed open at that time. But, and the board lit up
Okay,
quickly.
so I just want people to understand that,
Yes.
because our phones start ringing then, of course, because we, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, we suddenly incur a big customer service bill for phone calls.
Oh, right,
Yes.
okay.
That should get put on the bill also, as far as the cost. I guess there's
Go
a state ban on the balloons, or we don't have anything locally, right?
We can't, I forget what the specifics are, but it's literally something like you're allowed to release like 5 or 10 balloons or something like that. I forget what it is, but it's.
It's not helpful.
It should be 0.
It should be zero.
You should be allowed 0, but.
I thought we
yeah.
had an ordinance banning them at the beach. Could be wrong. All right, would you like something?
Yeah. A couple questions for Brian on the PCA things. I'm curious on the, I guess it's for Brian, on the cable. This was the cable between, for our own power plant and coming into the yard or something like that?
Right, that was from our power plant, our GT2, we call it gas turbine number 2, to the main yard substation. So we
But that went out, there was an issue with the connectors at the end or something or other, and did we have stock of the cable? And I don't know all the details, but that was quite a while ago that went out.
Yes, that failed December 31st.
And we're still not replaced on that?
It's been ready to go for a little bit of time, not crazy time, maybe 3 weeks, maybe a month. It's been ready to go, but in order to get the cable commissioned and tested, we have to line up that equipment. There's only a handful of pieces of equipment in the country that will test and commission that, so those have to be reserved and registered and get going in your direction when you need it. So we couldn't, based on when we knew we would be ready to go, we didn't have that timeline. We couldn't reserve that equipment until we were physically made the new connections and were ready to go. And then it became an issue of, okay, now we got to line up this piece of equipment. We had to go get quotes for that because it's not the cheapest thing in the world. So we had to go line it and get quotes and go through that process, the procurement process.
So we're on the way, and you don't need me to bring my $7 Harbor Freight voltmeter?
You try that as well. No, we are
It's
scheduled.
got a high voltage setting.
Yeah, no, that would not be advisable. Yeah, yeah.
It is lined up for the 30th, though. We do have the equipment lined up. We're hoping that we commission this on the 30th and we can close out this outage on the 30th of this month.
Because I assume that because we are on deck to dispatch occasionally, we can dispatch until this is done, so there's some pressure from that, too.
Right. So the way that transformer works is that transformer feeds or supplies GT2 power into the main yard, but also S5. So that combination unit has been unavailable for us to use for capacity purposes. So we've had to replace that capacity with additional capacity purchases under our supplemental contract, which is what it's designed to do.
Right.
But thinking back to what took place, when the cable failed, there was the initial, oh no, it has failed, and then there's the troubleshooting to find out, was it the cable or was it the connector?
Yeah, right.
And then there's trying to figure out, well, can we, when it became apparent it was the connector, can we just cut it back a little bit and put a new connector on it? So
And
you
how
go through
much
that,
extra?
that level of analysis, a lot of experts to weigh in, and ultimately the decision was made, it's not worth the risk. You can't do that. And by the way, you're gonna have to replace the cable. Okay, let's find where we can find, where we're gonna get this cable in the country for this voltage, this application,
Which we couldn't.
which was very difficult to do. And then we had to find the connectors and then find the contractors who would open up their schedule to come here to match this connector to the cable, do the installation, and then get it tested. So each time you go through one of these iterations, you're trying to figure out what's the quickest way to get it done that will also be, in the long run, safe and make this unit
Yeah.
available again. So you just wind up with a lot of time.
Okay, I noticed that the FPL transmission charges, I would assume that they ought to correlate pretty strongly with the combination of OUC and Stanton, because you're paying for juice coming through. And Stanton's pretty small, so it probably mostly correlates with OUC. And just eyeballing it, I'm seeing 245, 250, say, for 960 from OUC in October, but quite a bit higher, 430 in August, and not that much higher in the OUC. Can you enlighten us? I'm just curious.
So let me give you the background on that. So basically, every megawatt hour, every kilowatt hour that we have delivered to the city has to come through the FPL system.
Right.
And it's actually grossed up to include the output of our power plant, of our solar plant.
Which is pretty small potatoes, but.
Right. And then what they look at is what's called the coincidental peak, not necessarily when we peak, but when does the transmission system peak, and what was our contribution to that peak.
And August had a lot more peaks than October.
Right, so our impact on the coincidental peak was significant. The other thing I say to remember, and I know you don't all just, look at this every moment, every day, so maybe I shouldn't say remember it, but we have to remember it, but
Right.
is that FPL increased their transmission rate, the unit rate, earlier in the year. We are arguing against that through FMPA in an intervention in a rate case, which is before FERC. So hopefully there'll be a reasonable negotiated settlement, if not a fully arbitrated case or fully litigated case in front of FERC to set the rate. So if the rate that we ultimately arrive at, either through settlement or through
Litigation.
litigation in the proceeding, we would then get a refund back of some of it, but we can't count on it. So that's
No.
not taken into account. That has been the case in the past, where we've gotten a credit to our PCA because we had a rollback in the rate, but we're not counting it right now. But FMPA, on behalf of its members who are on the FMPA or FPL transmission system, are a party to that intervention.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. And I appreciated the pointing out that from that peak in May of minus 700 coming down to 400, that is basically the high usage and the revenues coming in somewhat delayed, and we're lining back up is the,
It'll trend back to the center. We're going to watch it closely to see if the negative slide continues. We may have to come to you in 2 or 3 months and say we might need to make a PCA adjustment to level off. But there's a lot of moving pieces as natural gas prices are moving, storms. Just today, for example, we talked about this storm in the Gulf. Imagine that the rigs will probably shut in production. So that will put some upward pressure on natural gas prices. That's going to show up in the futures contracts for October. Whether it actually happens or not remains to be seen. But there are things that move markets. Brian watches this every day. I watch it probably 3 times a day. One of the first numbers I look at and say, where are the futures going today? But because that's a proxy or indicator of where we're going to be.
and it seems to add up with the graph on the second page that our expenditures since March have been above the revenues. So that suggests that we might be looking at an adjustment.
Yeah. So one of the things, though, that we haven't talked about in detail before, but obviously maybe not obviously, we buy capacity and we buy energy under the supplemental contract. So, and when solar starts flowing in our direction, let's say by November 1, we will be able to take some capacity credit for the 13 megawatts at Rice Creek that'll be flowing to us. So we'll probably take 40 to 50% of that as capacity credit, which will decrease the amount of capacity we buy under the supplemental contract.
Plus, it's actual juice, so we decrease for that reason as well. So both the capacity and the juice
Yep.
decrease.
So the
Should help.
yeah, we're going to talk in the future a lot more about the economics of the solar and how that's going to help in 2026 and beyond in terms of decreasing our capacity purchases under supplemental contracts, whoever we're under contract with at that time. Because there is some, and how that helps serve as an effective hedge against high gas prices.
Yeah. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you very
Nice
much.
jacket, by the way.
thank you.
That's a good look. Anything else from our electric utility?
Not for now, thank you.
All right, now, next up, we have Vaughn Haydick, our own water utilities maven.
Hello.
And
Vaughn
before you
Haydick.
begin, Mimi has something to say.
Well, now I'm a little afraid to give her a balloon. After all,
me?
Yeah,
that's
right.
for you.
I promise not to
Do
let it
not let it go because obviously I'm off the dais and you don't have a job. So, but no, this is for you
Oh, my
and
goodness.
Thank you,
congratulations
really.
on becoming the official director of the
Water
Department.
utilities.
Thank you so much.
Very proud of her.
Yes, we're
Thank
very
you
proud of
so
you. That's
much.
awesome.
That was nice and unexpected. So, Vaughn Hayduck, Water Utilities. We have a heavy agenda tonight, and so most of my update items are on the agenda to follow. starting with the Town of Palm Beach water negotiations. So as we have the Diffenderfers here, are you guys sure you don't want to say something? But, so
shy.
I'm sure that you guys know that the Town of Palm Beach is considering leaving West Palm as their water provider and considering us as an alternative option. So we are bringing on Lewis, Longman, and Walker to help us negotiate that. We are still very unsure what it would look like, but now we at least have help in proceeding with that negotiation. Also on the agenda tonight is we are moving forward with the demolition of the water tower at the North Ball Fields. So it was interesting trying to figure out how to contract that work, but I think we got it, and we were able to use the budget allocation that had been set aside for painting, so we're not losing that.
It's kind of sad.
And nobody wanted to blow it up, huh?
Nobody responded to me about blowing it up. I did try. And looking forward for this storm that might be coming through, for storm preparation, we have some extra crews that are going to be working a little bit late this week, making sure that we are prepared, that all the storm drains are cleared. Something that I wanted to say, I know it's been said here before, but again, I'd actually been working with Tiana earlier today to get a social media post out, and I just checked, and it's not there yet, but I think it's going to be posted tonight, that we would really appreciate that if you're going to trim your trees before the storm, to
Don't
not
put it-
put it at the curb. So in that kind of PSA, we are encouraging everyone to use their green yard waste bin, and to only trim and put out those trimmings before your designated yard waste pickup day. So that, here, and then again, hopefully on social media soon, is kind of a PSA for pre-storm.
How do we push out that PSA? In what media?
So I know that that will be going on social media platforms. I'm not sure that they were going to put it on the website or push it out.
Isn't there a text thing that we push stuff out?
As far as I know, that's mostly used in case of emergencies, but it is important. It's very counterintuitive because you want to trim your trees before the storm, you think that it will help, and then they clog cause flooding, and so doing our best there to kind of get that education out there, and that was also going to be published with the Public Works collection guidelines so that everybody can see their designated yard waste pickup day, the information about the bins, and we're doing our best on that. So, but, you know, we know that a lot of rain might be coming, and doing our best to prepare. And in line with that, and also on the agenda tonight, the South Palm Park Stormwater Pump Station project on 18th Avenue South, that pump station is now operational.
Great.
So hopefully, you know, if we do get a significant amount of rain, that will be helpful. The contractor is still working on their punch list, but the pump station is running. And the final, I guess, big remaining item on that project is the pavement and the sidewalks. So the work to kind of correct what happened with the sidewalks and driveways is scheduled to begin on Monday. And then that will be followed by the asphalt contractor coming through and milling and resurfacing that entire stretch of the road so that everything matches up, you know, flush elevation to
I've not
elevation.
heard anything from those neighbors for a while, so I figured you had it handled.
Yes, I just.
Thank you.
For the driveways in particular, I just spoke to them this morning, and otherwise, it's kind of whenever I go out there, everybody just comes outside to check, so.
Yeah, you were really responsive to them, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks. But that's all I really had as far as an update tonight.
Okay, I see Ms. Malega has her light on.
Thank you. Thank you for all that you do and all your hard work. I was going to recommend that for the public service announcement, maybe we could have Commissioner Diaz and Commissioner McVoy connect with Guatemala Maya Center, Bridges, and, because I mean, a lot of our community is not on social media. My wife's not even on social media. So social media is great, but we want to try to reach all of our residents where they are and really do that educational piece. So I think it'd be, I mean, I don't speak Spanish, or else I would volunteer myself.
The Guatemalan Maya Center, that's a very good idea. The Guatemalan Maya Center does have an active
Yeah,
multilingual
they do.
texting thing, and I'll
Maybe you
talk
could,
to
yeah.
Mariana about, maybe we can pull
Okay.
a condensed version of the text and get them to push it out.
Yeah, if
That
we
would be
can,
great.
I can get it to NAPC too, and they
Oh,
can
right.
send it out to the neighborhood associations, and the neighborhood associations then can send it to all the neighbors.
The more people that can see that, the better.
I,
So,
I will say, though, I do recognize, through no fault of your own, this is a historic, age-old problem, consistent battle every time. We're always going to have to push this message because it seems like no matter what, there will always be people who just
Oh, yeah.
envision, oh, now's the time to load up the street.
well, it's funny because earlier today, trying to look up, if there's any educational materials that other cities have been putting out or anything, when you Google things like
Not
that,
much.
it's encouraging. It's all the tree trimming companies saying, trim
Right.
your trees before
Yeah.
the
Oh,
storm.
yeah,
I'm like,
right.
no.
No.
Not right now.
And there's a lot of irony in that, because if you have mostly like native trees, those trees are going to be fine. You don't have to touch them. So there's that aspect of it. But then there's also like, we also don't even need to have a direct hit. Just putting that stuff out and then having a ton of rain from the outermost beyond bands is enough to cause havoc on our system. And it doesn't take much. So,
It does not.
yeah.
Well, fortunately, our county has not been listed in the counties that a state of emergency has been declared. Not to jinx us. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's really fun having you here. Up, Mr. McCoy.
Just an encouragement, which I'm sure both you and Louis Longman has thought of, but every time you talk to Palm Beach, remind them that if they go with us, they're protected both from forever chemicals and from the toxic algae. And that's a big
Sure they
deal.
will.
And I suspect their residents kind of like the idea, so.
Yeah, I think that the residents are ready to get away from surface water,
Yeah.
so hopefully that will work in our favor.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
That'd be
just hit
exciting.
those two things because they're very relevant.
I bet they will.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Public participation of non-agenda items. I have no cards. Madam, I do have a card. It's just, I'm sorry? Oh, I don't think she has any. Madam Clerk, do you have any comments to be read?
I do not, and I have no comments on any items tonight, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. So, Ms. Fisher, are you going to bring a card up? We'll wait. You're one of our best customers. Thank you. Good, it's Peggy Fisher, North A Street.
Peggy Fisher, North A Street. I would just ask that when they're going over handouts that you all get, that it be on the screens, like the PCA, so that people in the audience, which I'm, I guess, the only citizen resident here, but others do watch online. So I just asking.
Normally we do, but yeah.
I know, so I'm just
Okay.
up here as a reminder. And since you went into tree trimming, someone might want to talk to the Palm Beach School District, as earlier this week, they trimmed all the very high trees facing North A Street, and most of the limbs and things they cut off are laying on the ground. So just to pass on, I know we have no control over them, but for those people where it might get into the
Maybe I can make a phone call.
drainage system, since you were talking about it. And the other thing I heard was that there was a large group at the beach recently with a lot of Mylar balloons out in the water that they then let float away on the water. So it's not, if we're looking at any ordinance, it's not just letting them go in the air.
Oh, no, it's-
It's also reminding people not to let them float away on the water. Thank
and
you.
when they go up in the air, they come down and cows eat them.
It may be a good idea then to have some sort of signage
I'm thinking
at the
signage
beach.
would be good.
Do you know, anybody know if we have signage at the beach regarding release of balloons?
Or the fact, I don't think we can have, I think we have an ordinance that we can't have them at the beach, but let's check that out.
Okay, let's check that
Good
out.
idea.
Yeah, but just regular old Joe at the beach.
Be good to have a thing. Is your light on for any other reason? Okay. All right. Consent agenda. No, consent agenda.
No, minutes.
I'm looking at my public participation. All right. Approval of the minutes. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve?
All in favor, second?
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank
Aye.
you. Consent agenda.
Motion to approve?
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much, and we look forward to working with the different differs. Thank you. New business, work order number 13 with Hooper Corp. to provide construction services to the system hardening and voltage conversion of circuit 0602 from the 6th Avenue South substation. Do I have a second?
second,
All in favor?
Aye.
aye.
I'm sorry, who made the motion?
Maliga,
Thank you.
B, goods and services agreement with ULS Corporate, Inc. to purchase two three-phase outdoor-type pad-mounted step-down transformers for the Lake Worth Lagoon Crossing project. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Do I have a second?
Second,
Mr.
and could we get just like a 3-sentence about what this is?
yeah,
Just to
I'm kind
remind
of
us.
curious too.
This is really
He's-
cool.
He's leading the witness. Let me begin with a public service announcement. We talked about trees a little bit. Anybody who wants to trim their trees between the street and their home along their service line, we will come as electric utility, let us know in advance. We will disconnect it for free, and when you're done, we will reconnect it for free. Please don't try to trim around that service line when it's energized. Neither you as a homeowner, tenant, or contractor. Just let us know, we will disconnect it for you.
Thank you.
That includes weekends. So
Okay,
we will
so,
help you out. And the second part of it is,
Yep.
not only do we have great water, but we are in the engineering process to build a new water line out to the beach complex, right? So we will have new water
so
or
is that what
additional
this,
water.
that's what this item is?
This is not quite, this is somewhat related.
Okay,
We don't use transformers to push water across.
So we currently serve our beach complex with two 4 kV conductors that were buried in the mud, as best as we can tell, sometime in the 1960s, we think. We can't find detailed records of that. So we are in the process of engineering a new system, which will bring 26 kV out to the beach, new conduits. So instead of having 4 kV going from the mainland to the beach, everything on the mainland is being converted to 26 kV. So we will cross at 26, but all of the infrastructure at the beach, which is underground, is going to stay at 4 kV. So we need to step down from 26 to 4 kV. That's what we're asking for you tonight, is to go ahead and give us the authorization to go purchase those transformers, because they are a long lead time item.
okay.
So
We have a
these
motion,
are
a second.
over
Ms.
at,
Malega?
Thank
The-
you.
these are over at the
Ms.
beach,
Malega
not
has her
on.
light on. Mr. McBoy,
Yeah,
please
I
wait
hadn't
until
finished
she-
my question.
But you don't have your light on, you just start to, please, just,
I had it,
so you can ask her when you put your
I
light on.
just have a quick question. In the backup, it says that out of 5 respondents, 4 were disqualified.
I'm going to use a lifeline. Valentina, I believe, is on.
I just wonder what it takes to get disqualified out of when you have 4 people. That's
Madam
very,
Mayor, as I recall on this one, I think we had very specific specifications, and I think the documents that they submitted didn't meet our specifications.
okay, 'cause I just thought that was a high number, that 4 out of 5 were
I think that
disqualified.
usually happens with these transformer bids that we do. The
Okay.
specific specifications aren't met.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. May?
I'm assuming it's cheaper to do the step down than it is to bring the other stuff up to 26?
Yes,
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Mr. McBoy, did you
good
wanna-
question.
No, that was,
Okay, okay, so.
Question.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. C, Resolution 41-2024, establishing the rates and charges for the electric utility for fiscal year 2025. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously.
I
D-
apologize, Mayor. Who was the second?
May,
could we get a little bit of, for the public, a little bit of backup on
Well,
this?
Mr. McVoy, I'm happy to entertain, I mean, this is something that we have done before. This is just,
Well, we normally don't just approve an increase without any presentation
well,
on
we've
it.
done it. I mean, this is what we approved at 2 meetings already. This is not
Yes.
coming up. This is from the budget.
This is from budget carryover.
No. Ms. May, did you have a question? Okay. This, correct me if I'm wrong, this is just affirming what we have done now at the budget hearings as we went along.
And that is correct. So during the budget workshop process, we contemplated various levels and ultimately took direction from you on an 8% increase to the base rate, not to the PCA, just the base rate.
So the base rate goes then from what to what? I mean, we've done it before, I
Right here it
apologize.
goes to
The
6.
base
Oh.
rate for the impact, for example, on the 1,000 kilowatt hour residential customer would be, if I'm reading this correctly, $6.60 per month is what the total bill would change by to that customer.
Okay, thank you.
So we did use that as the basis for the budget that was submitted, has been through the first reading using these numbers. And the second reading is Thursday evening, again, using these same numbers. So this is reaffirming that we're going to change the electric rate. Now, this will be effective, we can't do it by October 1 because that doesn't get enough time to change the billing system, but it'll be effective November 1.
Mr. McVoy, did you have another question?
Yeah, and this came out of the Stantec, primarily out of the Stantec modeling that projected forward on all our different expenses, revenues and whatnot. And
Exactly. And the need to grow fund balance, things like that.
yeah. And does this include the item that I think is separate that we've talked about of adding a $5 charge? Would that be on top of this 6, or is this?
It would be on top of this. So for example, this goes into the base rate, which then rolls up into the total bill. And then there would be a surcharge, which is a separate item for you to vote on coming up,
Right.
which would be a flat surcharge to build a storm fund. And then at the time when that storm fund is complete, assuming you approve what staff has proposed, and you all proposed it to us that we actually do it that way, we turn the storm fund off because we don't want to just keep collecting that.
Right. And could you give us a sense, if you have that available handy, 2 questions. If, once we do this, or I guess we've already voted to do it, the 669 increase for 1,000, where does that put us relative to FP&L currently and projected on FP&L? And where does it put us? You know, we were at about 6 in the state, I think. I assume we would shift somewhat unless everybody else is doing about the same increase.
We had gotten down as low as 5th and then 4th, and I think the most recent, and I know the most recent one I just saw was issued this week, and I think we're up to 6th in the state. We are approximately, and it's hard to calculate because when you look at the surveys that are done and are published, they don't include all of the taxes. Well, we believe we're about $15 a month cheaper than FPL right now for that 1,000 kilowatt hour customer. So if we were to, obviously you've just approved this, so that gap will close by $6.69. And then if you do approve the surcharge in a few minutes, we would still be lower than FPL.
About $5 ahead of.
Let's call it, about
$4.
$4 and change. And we believe that their rates will be going up in the coming months as well, probably as early as January, we think, because they've got a longstanding award of a rate case, which will increase rates early next year. Plus, they have other things which come up that they automatically, process through for rate increases as well.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the context.
We will remain competitive with this
Mr.
change.
Diaz?
Mr. Liberty, he pretty much answered it. That was my question.
Okay.
We don't expect too much of a change in that graph because everyone else is probably honestly doing the same thing for the same reasons.
Yep. Resolution, item number D. Yeah. Resolution 42-2024, the Electric Utility Storm Fund, and Mr. Liberty just referred to that. That's the $5 a month to get to the storm fund of, I believe, how many millions of 2 million? 4 million.
The goal would be to, do you want
And
to go
this
ahead?
we went
comment?
over at great length, yeah.
Right, so the goal would be to try to reach about $4 million. We're starting out with $500,000, which you authorized to be moved from the PCA reserve fund, if you will, the rate stabilization fund, over to the storm fund. So you've seeded it with $500,000. Our calculations are that if we add a $5 per month surcharge, as we talked about at the last meeting, that would get us over a period of about 24 months. It might be a little bit less because there'll be some interest collected on the money as it is in the fund. Probably in 22 to 24 months, we should reach that $4 million number, assuming, of course, that we don't have storms during that period of time, which would draw it down. But it will help close that gap between the blue bars and the black line on the Stantec model. So that will help building, fund balance, which is very important.
Okay, do I have a motion? Oh, Mr.
Motion to approve.
Wait, I just saw the lights on. Ms. Malega?
Thank you, and thank you all for indulging me when I wanted to make sure that we put this on the bills. I've been very vocal in telling everyone, when you're mad, just call and yell at me, send me emails. I don't think that 4 million, and I'm going to say this again, is anywhere near what we need in this fund. And we're going to see this weekend how quickly people blow through $4 million. When I look at the contracts that we approve for just the parts that we have to buy, this $4 million could be spent within 2 hours if we had a bad storm come through. So I would like us to extend that 4 million, and I mean, it's going to take us 2 years, 24 months, whatever. But whoever's sitting in the seat in 2 years from now, I want to make sure that what I've done is protect the city for the future, and I don't think $4 million touches it. And I would really like to try to double that. And if it takes us, like you said, if we're dipping into it as we're building it, it's going to be constantly fluctuating. But I don't think that we should reach a $4 million suggested achieving that balance. I just think that that's way too low, and maybe I'm dreaming, but I see staff head in the back shaking, going, yes, you're correct, because I look at the contracts, I see, and prices are only going to continue to increase over the next 2, 4, 6 years for these materials that we need. So I'm just hoping that we can get consensus to increase this to at least $8 million, and if, however long it takes us to get there, if we dip into it, if we don't, I think that this number's way too low.
Yeah, I was going to say, we discussed, I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you, but
We can change it. Hello, Christie? Can we change it now and bring it back for an additional amendment, or can we approve it with just making that
we
change?
can always add more later.
If the motion is to amend it, we can amend the resolution if you provide direction tonight.
Yeah.
And have that done tonight, or we can, if you want to bring it back and present it at a different time with a different.
I would just
number
make a
and then-
motion to approve it, but with the number being $8 million being the suggested achieving dollar amount.
Okay,
If I, as an audience member, could make just a point of
Sure.
order. I don't disagree with the Commissioner at all. If we look at the motion does not set the $4 million. The $4 million is discussed in the background and justification, but the motion is to begin collecting the $5.
But it's in the resolution, I think.
Yeah,
Correct,
Yeah.
right. So if you want to modify, I guess you would want to modify the resolution to cap it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and that's the question. Can we do that on the fly?
you can do it on the fly. The one thing I would mention is that once it reaches 4 million, we're supposed to come back to you to decide what you
to
want to
keep
do.
going, that's what we had talked about.
Right, but in all due respect, like I said, if we're not here in 2 years, because if it takes 2 years, whoever's sitting up here could make the determination that, we don't even need this storm fund, go ahead and spend it. I'm just talking as me being elected, I want to make sure the storm fund continues for the future of the city. And to me, if it comes back, it could be changed once that peak's hit. And to me, if it's going to take us 5 years to hit that 8 million, I know that within 5 years, we're going to need to dip in there and take money, even if it's just for minor wind damages. So
Well, it had,
that's,
sorry.
Ms. May?
First of all, it had to be a named storm, so it couldn't just be for mine. Well, I mean, I guess Helene is a named storm. But maybe before we put an actual dollar number on it, we kind of do some research just to see what a Cat 2, Cat 3, Cat 4 storm costs, so we can look. I mean, you guys might already know that, I don't know. But, I mean, if you were to put the number on it, being a professional, unlike us, what number would you cap it at?
I would say that $4 million is the bottom of the range. And here's how we came up.
Right, there was a
Kind of
way
with-
to, yeah, if you'd explain.
What we remember, my recollection was shortly after arriving here, we experienced Irma. I want to say that we spent about 1.7 to $2 million for Irma, and it may actually be higher. Finance could tune that up. But I think the number for Dorian, and in Irma, we actually was a Category 1, and we actually went out and did a lot of work with contractors. In Dorian, we had a lot of contractors here because it was that time of Cat 3 or Cat 4. It never quite got here, but we still had a lot of contractors here for a week, and that number was 3.9. So, right.
Well, I hope we put them to work to do something since they were here.
Clean the
You
alleys.
can't.
It triggers a whole host of other, but you're,
Oh, yeah,
so you're
it's a-
paying them, they're
in a
standing
motel.
by in case you need them.
Well, I guess
But,
it's better than not
so I'd-
having them.
I'd say that $4 million is a very reasonable starting point. I think it's a very good argument to be made that it should be higher,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that $4 million is a lot better than what we've had, so it's
Yeah, and I
it's a
think
very
that's
good
where we
start.
started, was just
Right.
that we hadn't
But
done anything.
I agree with Commissioner Malega. If we get hit by a category, 2 or 3 and it's a direct hit, the number could be larger. Now,
That's funny, yeah.
What is working in our favor is we have a lot of new infrastructure out there. It doesn't mean we won't have outages, but that means that infrastructure, absent it being taken down by the roof of a house, for example, that's flying by, or anything else that's going to be flying,
By your tongue.
it's designed to Category 5. But again, there's going to be, we still have a lot of stuff that's old from the 1960s that will have to be fixed in a hurry.
So you
Well,
made
it's
that
funny, I
for
mean, I
eight-
just, I don't disagree with you, and I think we may have discussed this at the time, but for whatever reason, we came to 4. So I mean, this, I don't care.
I can second the 8.
All right, fine, we have a motion and a second. Mr. Diaz?
Yeah, I mean, I think the 4 million was, looking at the resolution, that was the suggested because of Dorian. I think I remember specifically, we said how there's about 3 million, so we just like, sure, 4 is good to, and I think we were honest with ourselves that that would really only cover like mobilization. It's not
Right.
gonna cover, it's a drop
Because at
in the
some point
bucket.
FEMA does kick in.
Right, but to Vice Mayor's point, I mean, you want to change the goal, but not necessarily the rate of
Right.
getting there. So it's like the 7th, whereas, it is the anticipated 8 million, and I'm guessing it would be 48 months. I would say that's reasonable.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think some other points, just more information for you to keep in mind is, if we get hit with a Category 2 or 3, we could have many of our residents whose homes are gone. So you want to have enough money collected to continue to rebuild the system, which you have to do whether all of those residences actually come back or not. So, and eventually they do come back, but it could be, 1, 2, or 3 years before it comes back, based on what we've seen in other parts of the state that get impacted with big storms. And in the backdrop, you have FEMA reimbursement, which is obviously difficult to get, and it takes time. So you have to be able to literally ride through not just the storm itself, but then you have to ride through the financial storm to have enough money in reserves to not affect future ratings and things like that. So
That's like
there-
banking on waiting grandma to die to pay your bills. It's just,
or
Our
to
favorite
get back
acronym.
some of my land in Cuba. But it's best to be prepared, assuming that
fine.
that's not going to happen.
I don't know why we didn't come to that then, but, okay, we're here now. Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second. Mr. Mavoy, did you want to have we have a motion and a
That's why I have
second
my
to
light
rescind.
on. Yeah. Thank you. I too agree with the idea that the 4 is definitely on the low end. I don't know whether we want to go with 6 or with 8. I could be argued either way on that. It's pretty clear that we need more. A question for you in that line, as you talk to Fitch or similar rating outfits over the next year or so, do you have a sense whether they're likely to look favorably on us, particularly that we're not just creating this fund, we're actually funding the fund in an obvious way? I have another question, but that's,
So I'll swear that we did not practice this question, but that in fact came up today in our internal prep call with our financial advisors. And the answer is clearly yes.
Yeah.
The rating agencies look favorably upon
preparatory.
Planning.
being prepared, having adequate funds set aside to literally weather a financial storm or a physical storm. Yes, they would view that favorably.
Yeah.
Now, whether they would view 4 better than 2 or, less than 8, we didn't get into that, but recognizing that we have these obligations that could upset the apple cart for us financially, and that we're preparing for them by saving money ahead of time and putting it away in the lockbox, which only you could touch, that's a good thing.
Yeah. So I would say I'm in favor of 8. One question that I didn't see in the backup, we had talked about, and I think there was strong consensus on the dais that we want that as an explicit line item on the bill.
Right.
That clearly says this is to build specifically a storm fund. Is that will that be incorporated by the time this actually hits the bills?
Yes, that's our intention to do that. That's why you've asked for an additional month beyond the start of the rate increase in the base rates, another month to get this working, to make sure that, because we've never had a surcharge that I'm
Right.
aware of. There may have been one many, many years ago, but we need to make sure
I'm not aware of one either.
that the
so-
new billing system that we're on right now will in fact handle this, and it'll work as desired. So, for example, it should not be at the top of the bill, which then gets taxes added to it. It should be a surcharge, just a flat surcharge. So we need to make sure that works properly.
Yeah, and maybe even on the first couple of bills on the insert or somewhere on the bill that it says, hey, you may notice a change. This is why the commission is looking to, give people some explanation for it. I think if it just says storm charge, that'll get you most of it.
One of the things that we wanted to do is to use our newly reformed Public Information Office to do a lot of education on this. So before it ever shows up in the bill, people would say, oh, okay, I've heard about that.
Right.
Because obviously there's not many of us in this room. Hopefully there's a lot online. But the people are going to say, when did this happen?
Yeah,
We want
yeah.
to make sure that they're well aware of it. It's coming.
Good,
Okay, so
thank
we-
you.
So, thank you. So we have a motion to raise it to 8, and we have a second for that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you
for
very much.
indulging.
Thank you. Okey doke. Next one up is E, contract with b and B Underground Construction, Inc. for construction services for the Parrot Cove Stormwater Improvement Project. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Do I have a second?
Second?
By Mr. McVoy, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. F,
I do have one question on that one.
yes?
And I guess this is for Vaughn, right? Yeah. I don't think Ed deals with this one. Just remind me on that particular one, that I've raised a couple times that when we did the improvements for the drainage further north at 18th and Wellesley, we had to raise the ground surface on the shore side, and that led to a wall and led to a railing and reduced access. Will that happen with the Parrot Cove one? And if so, does this contract build in public access at any of those?
This one is no walls, no berms. There are 4 outfalls. It's 4th, 6th, 8th, and 9th Avenues North that go to the Lake Worth Lagoon. The outfalls are on the edge of the golf course. This will just be adding tidal check valves so that
Okay.
high tide won't influence, I'm sure you've heard the spiel, as well as maintenance structures so that we can keep up with those check valves because they do require a lot of work.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All in favor? I think we voted already. All in favor? Okay, we're moving on, moving right along.
Did we vote?
Yes,
I
I
believe,
did.
yeah.
Okay.
F, work order number, yeah, oh, yeah, work order number 11 with Global Tech for demolition of north elevated tank. And I think
Motion
this
to
is so
approve.
sad. All, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Goodbye.
gonna happen? I'm gonna watch.
It should be a big spectacle, like we should have,
We should have a,
Yeah.
for
Maybe-
$300,000, we should have a
Maybe we
party.
could get with like special events and see if we can, make something
Like
fun
party
with
at the
it.
water tower.
But,
Not at the water tower.
party to take
Near
down
the
the water
water.
tower.
Yeah.
we could get one of those lights that go in the air so people can see what we're doing.
I'm sure John Faust has one.
The big ones. like-
Oh, I'm
like
sure
in
he has
concerts,
one.
How they do it.
But, so that timeline, we don't have it nailed down yet. The company that is subcontracting for this is out of state. That's, a specialty service. So they were hoping to schedule us with a time that they also had other Florida
Got it.
customers to work with at the same time. But hoping to do it before the end of the year.
Okay, please don't do it
So-
without us.
Okay,
Yeah, let us know.
Let us know.
we'll
Yeah.
make it,
Do
we'll
we
make
get
a
to
party
sell
out
the
of it.
scrap metal?
It's the opposite of a ribbon cutting.
I think
We
for-
tie it up.
It's probably the first one in the city's history, right?
As
Yeah.
far as the scrap metal goes, I think part of the reason the quote was so much lower
They
than
get
we
the
was
scrap
expecting is
metal,
they
right.
keep it. So,
All right.
so that is
You don't
not
want that, right?
an option, unfortunately.
Okay. So,
Awesome.
did we
Exciting.
vote all in favor?
Aye.
As long as there's a party.
It's sad because it would have made a really incredible artificial reef, but the limitation is that the county does not have a barge. The artificial
Big
reef
enough.
program is on hiatus. No, they don't have any contractor. The contractor that built the artificial reefs sold his tools, retired, and so the program's on hiatus.
Oh, my
But
God.
that thing would have
We
been.
don't have a semi truck like that could pull it. I'm like,
Just
It's a
dump it
big
off the end of the
barge.
pier.
Dump it off the.
We could roll it.
Okay, thank you.
They do it on
F, all right,
movies
come
the
on,
time.
come on.
Better than the St. Augustine here.
I've lost
Did you see
control.
that?
Next, F, work order. No, that was
No,
it. G, Resolution 37, 2024, establish the rates and charges for the water system for fiscal year 2025. This is again, we've gone over with budget.
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
H, Resolution Number 382024, establishing the rates, fees, and charges for the sub-regional sewer system for fiscal year 2025. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. I, Resolution Number 39, 2024, establish the rates and charges for the local sewer system for fiscal year 2025. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
J, Resolution 4024, designate board member, alternative board member for the East Central Regional Water Reclamation Facility representing Lake Worth Beach.
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
K, agreement with FDEP for a drinking water state revolving fund for loan for lead service line inventory. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
L, agreement with Allied Universal Corporation to purchase sodium hypochlorite bleach for water treatment and odor control.
Absolutely not.
Do I, we couldn't just say bleach. Do we have a
little different.
motion?
Motion to
mo-
approve.
Do I have a-
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Are there any comments from any staff before we part this party?
I had one quick question on the second to last one, the lead one. Do we have any,
I mean, I think we adjourned, but go ahead.
do we have any guesses that we have any lead pipes?
We do not have any lead pipes.
That's what I thought.
The
So
field
what,
investigation is complete and there are none. The inventory was a requirement from the EPA. They're making all large water systems do it. So what we were required to do was desktop investigation, make sure we went through building permits, we went through everything just to rule out areas that were constructed after lead lines were outlawed. Then we did a field investigation, which was
For
what we've
older.
been doing for the last couple of weeks, doing scratch tests on meters and things like that. And no lead was found in the field investigation.
Wonderful.
So now all we have to do is document it in a GIS-based system and we're done. But
cool.
that didn't-
I thought, that's
Good
good,
view.
important for our community to know that we don't have any lead pipes. We got lucky.
And
not
yeah,
have
so
one.
part of that will be, making that public.
Yep.
They're just finalizing the results, but, so the loan is kind of retroactive to help us get reimbursed for it, and then there's 50% forgiveness, so.
Great.
Great,
Thank you very much. Thank you, staff. Thank you, you in the back of the
We
room.
didn't have a vote for the adjournment or a second. I just heard Commissioner Malik, Vice Mayor Maliga make.
Do I have a second on the adjournment? Okay, Mr. McVoy, second.
I'll
All in
second it.
favor?
Aye.
Thank